we are about ready to just jump right into the presentation. I'm so excited to see this presentation that it was presented at Feline Leukemia Day, and Margaret has declared July Feline Leukemia Month, Awareness Month. So that's fantastic and wonderful. So what we have today is feline leukemia, mixed households. Should you do it? Margaret Tompkins is president of the Tompkins Foundation for Feline Leukemia Advocacy. She's a tireless advocate for feline leukemia education and feline leukemia positive cats. She actively networks feline leukemia cats all over the country. She's active on social media, especially Facebook, in promoting adoptions and education. She's a huge proponent of TNR and supports shelter and rescue programs that provide positive outcomes for feline leukemia cats. All right, I'm going to send this right over to Margaret.
Hey there, Stacy. Thanks very much for putting this together. Today, I'm just so excited that we get to share some of this information about feline leukemia cats, and with a focus on mixed households, whether we ought to do that or not. So thank you very much for putting everything together, and we will dive into this. Wanted to show off our picture of Minx here. Minx was the FeLV positive cat who's blind, and was the inspiration for our logo. So I like to share Minx whenever I can. He's certainly a cat that was inspirational to me. He certainly taught me that cats don't know disabilities. So I thank Minx and everything for getting me involved in this. A couple of months ago at the online Feline Leukemia Day conference that Stacy hosted, we had some survey questions, and the information that we received was just really interesting. We asked the attendees if they were seeing a lot of FeLV positive cats, and it was surprising that we have over 60% are seeing really quite a few FeLV positive cats, and that's encouraging news. That tells me that we're seeing more FeLV positive cats in shelters and rescues. That means we're not euthanizing them anymore, so that we're seeing them in the pipeline where we can get them to adoption. We also asked these people what they did with their cats, and this was just enlightening to me. 92% of these cats had positive outcomes. That is just so wonderful, and such a turnaround from years past. And in particular, 56% of them going into loving homes. That was the recommendation that came from the American Association of Feline Practitioners 3 years ago. And that message is finally resonating now, I think, with everyone, that the majority of these people are wanting to adopt them into loving homes. We're not quite done with our work. 8% are still being euthanized. So we know that we have some work to do. We certainly want to stop killing FeLV cats just because they have a virus. We also asked if they approved of mixed households, and this too was quite interesting to me. 30% of our responders had very strong opinions, either yes, it's okay, or no, don't do it. But the vast majority, 70%, were in sort of this middle ground, maybe yes, maybe no, or they're unsure. So it's really an area that we need to explore a bit. Think about what are the risks involved, and how we might be able to make better decisions about our FeLV cats. Here's the group of cats that got me first involved. This was back in 2011. They were kittens at the time, tiny little baby kittens that were very sick, and a good friend of mine was nursing them back to health. These guys had every disease and parasite in the book. And while she would take samples and dispense medications, I just got to play with them. And the top two there, Bo and Barney, they ultimately all went to Best Friends Animal Sanctuary in Kanab, Utah. And Bo and Barney became Legends of Kalmar, which is where they house the FeLV cats there at Best Friends. These two cats also were very inspirational to me. I wasn't able to save them, and that was just a devastating reality to me that these are two healthy young cats that were euthanized just because they had a virus. So I've been advocating for this for quite some time, and it's really become a mission for me. Now, some things we want to focus on today. We'll take a look at all these things and much more. But we really want to stop euthanizing cats just because they have a virus. There simply isn't any need for it. We know that FeLV isn't nearly as contagious as once thought. It's really pretty hard to get, so we'll be talking about that. We know a lot now about how FeLV is spread from cat to cat. The bulk of it is because cats are fighting, mating, and having kittens. That's what they do. That's what spreads the disease or the virus, and we will be looking at that in more detail. We've made some wonderful advances recently. The quantitative PCR test from IDEXX, I call it by number 26355. They have a bunch of tests that have very similar sounding names, so that's why you won't hear me giving it a name. I just call it by its number, 26355. It's an outstanding test. It's a confirmation test for FeLV these days, and it also will classify a cat, whether it's progressive or regressive, into two distinct categories, and it gives us a measure of how much virus is in the cat. That's called the viral load, and we'll be talking quite a bit about that. We also have had wonderful advances from Merck. They're a pharmaceutical company, and they've produced vaccines. They have a new one out on the market. It's a 2-year vaccine. It's highly effective. It's very safe. It's FDA approved, and we will look at that one also. The outcome that we want for all FeLV cats is that they are adopted into loving homes. This is the recommendation that's made by the American Association of Feline Practitioners in their 2020 guidelines for cats with retroviruses. The veterinarians have also said the same thing, that now we have a real consensus that adoption is the outcome that we want for these feline leukemia positive cats. Now, just the basics about FeLV for those that aren't as familiar with the virus. It's a retrovirus, and it only affects cats. It's not going to hurt your dog or your guinea pig or your significant other. It is strictly a cat virus. And we know that outside of the cat, it's a very fragile, wimpy virus. It doesn't live very long outside of the cat, and that makes it easily killed by the mildest of soaps or disinfectants. Just wash your hands, and you've eliminated that virus. Now, inside the cat, the virus can be devastating, and it can compromise the cat's immune system, which makes the cat susceptible to catching secondary illnesses and infections, and those can be really what is so serious about the cats. We know a lot now about how FeLV gets spread, and the predominant method of transfer is from queen to kitten. So it's the mom cat having the kittens. They don't have good immune systems, so they're infected. So that's a vertical transmission from queen to kitten. And we also see it horizontally transferred from adult cats in particular, from cat to cat through deep bite wounds. So we know that different cats can have different amounts of the virus, and their immune systems can be reacting very different. So it all depends upon the cat's immune system. It's the immune system in the cat that is his best defense against illnesses that the cat can pick up. We know that some cats can live for many years with FeLV. That's typically a regressive infection, and we will talk more about that. Let's spend some time on how FeLV is spread. The huge majority of feline leukemia is spread by cats fighting, mating, and having kittens. That's why I'm such a proponent of TNR. If you just get those cats spayed and neutered, you have virtually eliminated FeLV. So there may be a few other kind of minor methods of transfer, but this is the huge part of it. It just spay and neuter those cats, and it's going to end the spread of FeLV. We see in adults that FeLV is spread mostly by saliva to blood transfer. So that's an infected cat. There's typically a lot of virus in the saliva of the cat. So the cat bites into another cat and hits a blood vessel, and the virus can be transferred that way among adult cats. The foremost method of virus, though, spreading is from queen to kitten, either in the womb or through nursing. So that is the number one way that a cat will get virus, is that he gets it from his mom. This other transfers are possible, and we will talk about them. Some are possible, like long-term mutual grooming is one method of the virus spreading, and there's very little spread with water bowls, food bowls, and litter boxes, and we will talk more about that and walk through some scenarios. Also, FeLV can be spread in blood transfusion, so that's why we say that FeLV cats shouldn't be blood donors. FeLV, it turns out, is just not very contagious at all. We know that 2 or 3% of all the cats have FeLV. Now, that means that 97 or 98% of them don't have FeLV. So it's not nearly as contagious as we once thought. If it were really contagious, we would see a lot higher incidence of feline leukemia, and we're just not seeing it. There are some viruses or conditions that scare me, really scare me. Calicivirus, panleuk, even ringworm. Those are things I don't want to touch, and I just kind of go ballistic when I encounter them, but not FeLV. FeLV is a virus to be respected but not feared. We can handle FeLV. Some of these other things are a lot more difficult. So that's a myth that we want to dispel. FeLV is just not all that contagious. Merck, the pharmaceutical company, in their research, they have found that up to 30% of cats can be in what they call a high risk category. And by high risk, we mean that they are more likely to be the ones to contract FeLV than the other 70%. And look at this, is the list of them. These are all cats that have immature, weakened, or compromised immune systems. It's your young cats, the old cats, cats that fight, that haven't been neutered. These are the ones that are more likely to contract FeLV. Testing for FeLV, if anyone is testing, we sort of need to ask, why are you doing that? It's certainly okay to be testing, but you should have a good reason for doing so. We know that there's different approaches to testing. We do have a great screening test, the SNAP test. It is one of the most common, and it has been proven to be superior to all of the other screening tests. So this is some of the research done by Dr. Julie Levy and her team at Florida. We know that the SNAP test is by far the best of the point of care test or the screening test. However, there's a lot of false positives with it. Even the manufacturer says that it's 5% false positive, and that's under ideal conditions. That's perfect humidity, perfect temperature, perfect technique, if you will, for administering the test. In the field, we find that it's substantially higher, up to 30% of false positives. So we know that if we test a cat for FeLV, if it's positive, we have to think about it being a false positive and maybe do some more to find out whether it's positive or not. Cats can test positive one day and negative the next. That's just one thing that makes FeLV sort of an interesting virus. Dr. Levy and some of her outstanding research, she has studied some of these same cats for over 6 years. And they may be negative for long periods of time, and they have a stressful incident in their life, and then they test positive. So we know that they can be positive or negative. It depends upon the cat at the time. We certainly would love to put cats in categories and put them into boxes. And cats, we know, love boxes. But it's just not that certainty that we can give for some cats. So we have to be prepared for that and be able to deal with it. Regardless of the outcome of the test, no cat should be euthanized for testing positive for FeLV. We have this new, fairly new quantitative PCR test. We used to do the IFA testing, but this quantitative PCR has rapidly replaced that as the go-to testing. When it comes to the reasons that you're testing, we know a lot of people are doing TNR. If you're doing TNR, then do the trap, neuter, and return. Don't bother with the testing. Put all of that money that you can into doing more TNR. You will get more bang for your buck by doing so. Now let's talk a bit about this quantitative PCR. I've mentioned that it has replaced the IFA test, and it gives us far more information about the cat. It will give us a measure of how much virus is actually in the cat, and that can somewhat aid in the prognosis for the cat. It will classify the cat as being either positive or negative, and as progressive or regressive. And the break point on that is 1 million copies of the virus per milliliter of whole blood. If it's 1 million or more, we consider it a progressive infection. And typically the cat is contagious and can shred the virus in the environment. If it's less than 1 million, we consider that a regressive infection. The cat is not contagious and is not shedding the virus. And to put these two in perspective, this is sort of the dividing line that we make. We say that regressively infected cats, they are positive for FeLV, so they have the virus, but they're not contagious and they're not shedding the virus. Progressively infected cats, they also are positive for FeLV. They are contagious, they are shedding the virus, and these are the cats that are more likely to develop FeLV-related disease and have a shorter lifespan. The regressively infected cats we know can live for many years because their immune system is keeping up with the virus. It's just sort of keeping it at bay. And in addition to this, we now have a measure of the amount of virus, and it's just at a point in time. And this number can change over time. It can go up and it can go down. It all depends upon the effectiveness of the cat's immune system and probably the stress that the cat is encountering. Just a word about focal infections. Sometimes when we're running these tests, we get some very interesting results. If we have a case where the ELISA test, the one that looks for the P27 antigen, is positive, we know that the cat has the virus in their body, and we do the quantitative PCR test and we find that it's negative. That means there's no DNA for the virus in the bloodstream. That is indicative of a focal infection. Sometimes FeLV settles in one organ of the body and is not in the bloodstream. Kind of unusual. So that's why a blood test is not going to detect it, but the antigen test can detect it. We consider those cats to be positive for FeLV. They're regressively infected and they're not shedding the virus. They're also not contagious. So that it's rare. Focal infections are quite rare, but they can happen. Now, we've mentioned that doing this test, the 26355, gives us a measure of the amount of virus that's in the bloodstream. We call this the viral load. And now that we have this number, everybody wants to talk about it. And we don't know yet what this number means. So a word of caution here. We don't know what the relationship is between the viral load and illness. So it's not a matter that the viral load is really high, so the cat's got a lot of illness or will get ill. We just don't know. That has not been shown. We need much more research in that area. And if we do multiple tests and get different numbers on the same cat, or if we want to compare two different cats, we again don't know how these numbers relate to each other. I've got an example there. If we have a cat that measures at 6 at one point and we test again later and it's 12. Well, 12 is twice as much as 6, but we don't know if this is twice as bad for the cat. We simply do not know. We haven't figured that out yet. A lot of these data, when we're dealing with scientific information, the data tends to lend itself in certain mathematical curves. So that 6 to 12, if it were a linear curve, yes, that would be it, but we don't know that it's a linear curve. Other possibilities could be an exponential or logarithmic curve. We just don't know. So yes, it's great that we've got this number now. We can say just how much virus is in the cat at any point in time, but we really can't say what does it mean. And this becomes extremely important if we're wanting to do something about that viral load. So that's a word of caution. Just kind of understand that the science, we're learning more and more all the time. We now know the viral load. We just don't know what it all means. We see some really high viral loads in cats that are thriving, they're healthy, they're stable. My little dill kitty is in that category. He's highly progressive with FeLV, but he's the picture of health. We also see cats that have relatively low viral loads, and they just sort of wither and die. So we're seeing data all over the place, and we just have a lot more research that needs to be done. Now, you want to ask yourself, especially if you are considering a mixed household, is your cat at risk for getting FeLV, your negative cats? We know that only 2 to 3% of all cats have FeLV, and Merck in their research has shown that cats in certain categories, up to 30% of them can be infected with FeLV. So you'll notice the categories that are listed there. The one category that is not listed there are healthy adult cats. So your healthy adult cats are just not going to get FeLV. It's cats that are in this 30% category that are the most likely ones to get FeLV infections and perhaps later FeLV-related disease. This is extremely important if you're considering mixing positive and negative cats in your house. You really want to look at the health status of your negative cats. If they aren't in this category, perhaps you consider mixing your household. If they are in this category, maybe you want to rethink mixing them. So we know that healthy adult cats are not going to get FeLV. So we have to have a cat that has an immature, compromised, or weakened immune system. That's That's the prerequisite. We must have a cat that is capable of receiving the virus. And then the cat has to get exposed. And the most common method of exposure is from mom. The kitty got the virus from its mom. It could be possible that the cat is bitten by an infected cat. So those are the common ways of getting it. We know that FeLV is just not spread by casual contact. So we can eliminate that from our myths and misinformation. Let's look a bit at the vaccines that we have. Merck, besides doing some great research and finding about which cats are most likely to get the virus, they've done some significant research in vaccinations, and they have come up with a new vaccine, and that vaccine has been proved to be far superior to all of the current FeLV vaccines. These are in scientific peer-reviewed studies where they compared the new vaccine from Merck with others that were on the market at the time, and this one proved to be by far the most effective and safe of any of the vaccines. And it's the only one that's effective for 2 years. With this vaccine, you can vaccinate the kittens at 9 weeks, and it's really a double dose initially, about a month apart. They get the vaccine, and then after that, it's a 2-year vaccine. Now, some of the Merck studies show 100% effectiveness in preventing FeLV. Now, I'm never going to say that a vaccine is 100% effective. The sample sizes were very small, and so it's just not reasonable to think that it's going to be absolutely 100% effective. However, it is as good as it gets. It's the best one that we've got available, and it's FDA approved. And this means that it has gone through scientific, rigorous testing to get FDA approval. The science behind it you can trust, and you can look at the studies that were done, and I'm all for anything that meets that type of standard you can trust giving to your cat. Now let's talk specifically about mixed households. This happens all the time, and it happens accidentally. Typically, an owner has a group of cats. They've lived indoors together for years, and then one of them gets sick. So the owner takes the cat to the vet, and that's when they discovered that the cat is not only positive for FeLV, but it is having an FeLV-related condition or illness. So now the owner needs to do some things because of this positive cat. You certainly want to work with the veterinarian on a treatment plan for the infected cat. You want to get that IDEXX test, the 26355, and that's going to determine if your cat is regressive or progressive. You might want to use that information to decide on a course of treatment. Should your treatment be aggressive, or should you sort of kind of go with the flow? This is the type of information that can help you decide on a treatment plan for your cat. You certainly want to test the other cats to see if they're positive for FeLV, and if they are negative, you want to vaccinate them for FeLV. Now becomes the million-dollar question here. Should you keep those cats together? They've been together all their lives or close to it. Do you separate the positives or the negatives? So it's certainly decision time for the cat's owner. And I'm all about trying to give education to that owner so that the owner can make a reasonable decision that works for their household. So let's continue. When you look at mixed households, you want to consider the risk for getting FeLV. Now, the only 100% sure way, guaranteed, to prevent the spread of FeLV is to keep the positive cats separate from the negative cats. Now, they can be in the same household. They can share the same spaces, just not at the same times. So that's, if you want to be 100% sure, that's the way to go. I would point out that doors are wonderful inventions for keeping cats separate. I've got good friends that have mixed households, but they keep the cats separate. They even have separate catios. You can really be very effective in keeping one cat isolated from another cat. Now, we do know that if you are considering a mixed household, letting them mingle, that is the positives and the negatives, just freely living together, it's not going to be 100%. There's going to be some risk involved. Now, look at what we know. We know that just getting the cats spayed and neutered virtually eliminates the virus from spreading. It's not 100%. There's still other ways that it can be spread, like long-term mutual grooming, but it is a very effective way of stopping the spread of FeLV. So just getting them neutered and spayed, which you probably already have, you have reduced the possibility of that virus spreading. You can further reduce the risk by vaccinating your negative cats. Remember, the vaccine is very good. It's safe, it's effective, it's a very effective vaccine. So the risk of spreading the virus in a mixed household is very low. It's not zero. You still have some risk there. And with that, the long-term mutual grooming becomes the primary method of FeLV spreading from cat to cat after the cats have been spayed and neutered. I was reading not long ago that we started to see less FeLV cats about the same time that we started doing large-scale spay and neutering of cats. And to me, this was not a surprise. We know that the way FeLV is spread, and we know that we can stop the spread of FeLV just by spaying and neutering cats very effectively. So, like I said, that wasn't a surprise to me. Now, when it comes to adopting your FeLV cats and thinking about putting them into a mixed household environment, keep in mind that as an owner of a cat, you make decisions about that cat every day as to what litter it uses, what food it gets to eat, everything. So don't beat yourself up if a cat comes up with FeLV. We see many cases where someone has had a cat for years and the cat was even tested. The cat had tested negative, hadn't been exposed to anything else, and all of a sudden it pops up positive. So this can happen. It's just the way the virus works, so we can get surprises. So don't beat yourself up if your cat gets FeLV. FeLV is not a death sentence. We know that. We know that these cats can live long, healthy, very stable lives. A word about community cats in particular. I'm a huge proponent of TNR. Stacy and her wonderful group, they do lots of TNR certification workshops, like once a month. They do lots of programs about TNR. That is the best thing that you can do to stop the spread of FeLV. And of course, it's a great way to reduce the pet population as well. So if you are doing TNR, and that's all you're doing, you're not rescuing, you're not, putting them in shelters for adoption or anything, there's really no need to be testing for FeLV. Put all of that test money into doing more TNR, you will have more success. Now, if you do pop up with the occasional sick cat, most rescuers that I know, even if they're doing just TNR, they will take that cat to the vet and try to find out what's going on with the cat. Now, that's the time, if you've got a sick cat, that's the time to test for FeLV. We know that FeLV positive cats can get FeLV-related diseases, so that's a good reason to test for FeLV. In no case should we euthanize a cat just because it has FeLV. That is just not appropriate to do so. And we can put that cat, if you're doing TNR and find that the cat is sick and you've done some testing, it has a URI, you give it some antibiotics and the cat gets much better, it is okay to return that cat to the colony. We know that the FeLV cat that's been neutered, he's not going to spread FeLV to any other cat in the colony. The risk is 100% on that individual cat because he's got a compromised immune system, and with that he can come down with these secondary illnesses and diseases, and that can be the problem for the cat. But he's not a problem to the other cats in the community. He's just a problem to himself. Now, I don't claim to be an expert on FeLV, but I sure do listen to the experts. And this is some links that I urge you to take a look at when you get the opportunity. You can download these if you download the slides and the paper that goes with this. There's a whole bunch of links and additional information. Certainly the one that you want to look at, I think, is the 2020 guidelines for the from the American Association of Feline Practitioners. They are the ones that recommended adoption for these cats as the outcome, and the veterinarians have done the same. So we know that adoption is the answer for FeLV positive cats. They're better than sanctuaries. I mean, I love sanctuaries. It's saving the cat's life, so that's a lot better than euthanasia. However, adoption is better than sanctuaries. That's where the FeLV cats, so they love their people, and they get that 24/7 care that is available in a home. So that is my recommendation, is to look at some of these links and learn even more about FeLV. Now, what do you do if you've got an FeLV cat? You know, what do you do about sort of the care instructions, if you will? Know that this cat has a compromised immune system, and that means that the cat is prone to getting secondary infections. So if the cat gets sick, you take the cat to the vet. That just makes sense. It's good to see the vet maybe twice a year, and you want to do blood work occasionally, once a year or twice a year. Those blood panels, the basic ones, they give you a lot of information about the cat, and a veterinarian can read those numbers and tell you if there's some hyperthyroid going on, or is the cat perhaps pre-diabetic. They give you a lot of information. Now, cats, Felut cats especially, they need a high quality diet that's high in protein, low in carbs. And I recommend catinfo.org. It's a wonderful site there that will give you a lot of information about cat foods, what cat foods that are available, so you can pick one that is good for your cat. Now, cats are carnivores. They need animal protein. Plant protein doesn't do it. It's okay with dogs, and dogs can do veggies, but cats need that animal protein. So that's what you look for when you want to read labels. You want to get the high animal protein content. Now, when it comes to supplements, it's very much a buyer beware market. Most of these supplements are not approved by the FDA. I recommend lysine. It's kind of a common one. It seems to help some cats, and it does nothing for others, but it's very inexpensive, and it's not going to hurt your cat. But beyond that, be very careful about supplements. There's a lot of marketing hype that goes with people wanting to sell you expensive products that will do nothing for your cat. So keep that in mind. Look for anything that has some real scientific research behind it. If it's FDA approved, you know that it's been through a rigorous process of testing and development, and that it is safe and effective to use. Barring that, look for strong anecdotal evidence. Now, by anecdotal evidence, we're looking at where you have taken metrics. You have to have a metric before treatment and a metric after treatment. Is the before and after numbers making sense as to what you want to do? If not, maybe you don't want to use that product. So I just urge you to be cautious when it comes to supplementing your cat. We know that stress, cats don't deal with stress well, and in particular, FeLV positive cats don't deal with stress well at all. So you want to be very careful to avoid stress. Certainly the number of cats can even play a role. Cats need their space. They may like together time and playtime, but there's times when they just, they want their own space. So be cautious about the stress that is inflicted upon your FeLV cat. It can play a huge role. I do urge you to join one particular Facebook group, the owners of FeLV, FIV positive cats. You don't have to own a cat, by the way, to join this group. There's about 17,000 members. It's an extraordinary, knowledgeable group of people, and it's a great way to get support. Hey, I've got a cat that's in this situation. What do you think? You can really ask your questions, and it's a very supportive, positive group. So I urge you to check that out, join it. It's a private group, so just request admission to it. And again, you don't have to own a cat in order to be part of that group. Adoption, we've already mentioned, is the outcome that we want for these cats. It's what's recommended by the industry practitioners. The shelter groups recommend it. The veterinarians recommend it. This is overwhelming. Everyone agrees now that adoption is the outcome that we want for these FeLV cats. We also know that adoption is better than sanctuaries. So if you possibly can, you want to, get your cat into a loving home. We know that Austin Pets Alive has done, is set the model for adoption programs. They adopt out between 500 and 600 FeLV cats a year. So they really have set the model in what adoption programs can look like. And they've done customer satisfaction surveys, and I find it amazing that 95% are very happy with their FeLV adoption, and they become repeat adopters. So it is just an extraordinary program that they have set, and they're willing to share their information. So if you're looking to develop a FeLV adoption program, certainly check them out. They have a lot of information that is important for you. Generally, we recommend that a cat, a FeLV cat, go into a home as an only cat or a home with only FeLV positive cats. Now we're really beginning to rethink that a bit. Why not put a cat into a house where they are kept as separate? We know that the biggest, most important thing is that a cat go into a loving home with a person that's willing to take care of the cat, be responsible for the cat. And then you want to educate the adopter. Make sure that the adopter understands what FeLV is about. Give them a presentation like this or one from Dr. Levy. Let them really digest the information and see if they understand what it means to be the owner of a feline leukemia cat. So that's certainly my message to you, is that you want to adopt the cat into a loving home. And then you want to educate the adopter. Those are the two most important things. You will save one more cat by doing that. We also think you should be removing the barriers to adoption. We see some really crazy barriers, especially from rescue groups. These are very well-meaning people that want to do the very best for their FeLV cat, and they may take so much time vetting the potential adopters that they pass over the 99 others that probably would give this cat a loving, wonderful home. So we probably don't need home visits. We don't need to have, maybe a veterinarian on board. Think about the restrictions that you have on adoption of FeLV cats. The most important things, you want to get that cat into a loving home with a responsible owner, and you want to educate that adopter. Then let that adopter start making decisions about their cat. Do they want to get it vaccinated or not? Let them help make the decisions about the cat. You can adopt cats through social media or locally. I love local adoptions because that gives you the opportunity to talk to the adopter, educate the adopter, really get to know the adopter and the household, and you can explain FeLV to the adopter. And I'm all about education, so that's the most important thing that you can do is educate that adopter and give them the cat. You will save one more life, and you will be on board with being able to do more adoptions. I do have quite a bit more material about adopting, especially on social media. That's in the handouts and the paper, so feel free to download that, and there will be more information there for you. Veterinarians are your best resources when it comes to your FeLV cat. We know that a lot of what we've learned about FeLV has come just in the last couple of years, and most veterinarians have been out of school longer than that. So it's not unusual to find veterinarians that are not that knowledgeable in FeLV. But if you find one that is willing to learn with you, that's golden. You can send them some information or links that I have here in the handouts and the slides that will get your veterinarian up to speed fairly quickly. We know that a lot of veterinarians, their practices are either large animals or their dogs. Cats just haven't got the care and love that we know that they really deserve. But that's changing. We're finding more and more communication with veterinarians and learning about FeLV. You might try a feline-only practice. I have found that generally if you have one of those, and they're available generally in the larger markets, but not so much in rural areas or smaller towns, that they have, all they do is cats. So they probably are seeing more FeLV cats, and they have more probably experience in treating them. So that is one consideration that you might take away. And speaking of takeaways, we're kind of back to where we started. Some of the most important information that I would have for you today is that we want to stop euthanizing FeLV cats just because they have a virus. That 8% that I spoke about in the beginning, that needs to be brought down to 0. There just is no reason at all to euthanize a cat because it has a virus. We also know that feline leukemia is not nearly as contagious as we once thought. It's really rather hard to get. We have made some wonderful strides in learning how FeLV is spread. We know that the bulk of the transfer of FeLV is spread by cats fighting, mating, and having kittens. And if you can eliminate that, and you can do that by spaying and neutering the cats, that pretty much eliminates the possibility of feline leukemia spreading. We've got this wonderful new quantitative PCR test from IDEXX It gives us a measure of the viral load that the cat has at any point in time. And we've got an excellent new vaccine from Merck that is highly effective and it's safe. It's FDA approved. It's excellent. And of course, adoption is certainly the outcome that we want for all feline leukemia cats. Now, some special considerations for mixed households. If you're considering a mixed household, then you want to know if your cat is progressive or regressive. Remember that regressively infected cats are not contagious. So they're not going to give the virus to negative cats. And you can determine this with a test. We've got a test for it, that 26355. So we want to ask also, how healthy are your negative cats? Are they in any of this at-risk household? Are they cats that haven't been neutered yet? Do they have compromised immune system? Are there kittens involved? Sick cats? We really want to consider your negative cats. Are they at risk now, or will they become at risk in the future? Mixing households is a personal decision. It's a decision. I don't say do it. I don't say not do it. I say that it's a personal decision, and that's why I'm so passionate about educating the adopter. The adopter will make the decision. If you want to mix households, let them mingle. The risk is very low, but it's not zero. So it comes down to just how much risk are you willing to accept. We know that we've done things to eliminate or reduce the risk of FeLV spreading. Spaying and neutering the cats is number one. We know that the primary source of infection is queen to kitten, and that cats, fighting cats, adults, fighting and mating, they can inflict deep bite wounds, which can spread the virus into the bloodstream of the uninfected cat. So just getting cats spayed and neutered virtually eliminates the spread of FeLV, and you probably have already done that. You probably already have your cats spayed and neutered. If not, you certainly should. Now, vaccinating negative cats further reduces the risk of the FeLV spreading. We also, theoretically, the virus can be spread through shared food bowls, water bowls, litter boxes. We've heard that for years. Now, just think about this, what it takes for that to happen. We know that a queen having kittens, that's the way to pass the virus. That's how most of them get it. Adult cats fighting and mating, inflicting deep bite wounds, that happens. So we can understand that infection. It's that saliva to blood transfer. But consider the case of, say, a shared water bowl. Just what does it take to get the virus from an infected cat into an uninfected cat? Now, in the case of the cat that's infected with the virus, we know that there's a lot of virus in the saliva of the cat. So the cat takes a drink of water from the water bowl, and virus is in the water bowl. That's guaranteed. That's going to happen, and we've got virus now in the water bowl. How does that virus in the water bowl get into the bloodstream of an uninfected cat? Now that becomes the hard part. Remember that FeLV is a very wimpy, fragile virus outside of the cat. How can it survive? How cold or how hot is the water? It's going to have to be virtually the same temperature as the internal temperature of the cat, or it's not going to survive. So now, say you've got the virus that's in the water, and maybe the water is the right temperature. So what's the next step? You have to have an uninfected cat come take a drink of water out of that bowl, and the virus goes into the mouth of the uninfected cat. Now, there has to be a bloodstream contact for that virus to get into the bloodstream. If there is a bleeding ulcer, perhaps in the cat's mouth, bleeding gums, perhaps, the virus could penetrate the bloodstream that way. If the cat swallows the water, the virus is now in the digestive system of the cat. So how does it get from the digestive stream into the bloodstream? Maybe there's a bleeding ulcer in the cat, and it could be infected that way. Those are very unlikely scenarios. It's going to be very difficult for an infected cat to drink water out of the water bowl and have that virus infect a negative cat. It's possible. It's just not probable. It is so improbable that we really can dismiss that as a method of transfer. We focus on the transfers that are most likely to happen. So what does this leave you with? The risk that involved that you can't eliminate? And that comes down to long-term mutual grooming. As Dr. Levy says, this is the virus that your kitty can give his friends. It's the love virus. So this can be passed through long-term mutual grooming. How friendly are your cats? Do they constantly groom each other? In my household, it's peaceful coexistence, so mine don't groom each other at all. So this is the consideration that it boils down to. How healthy are your negative cats? Are they in that high risk category, or could they become in the high risk category? You want to think about that. And you also want to think about this long-term mutual grooming, because that does remain as a possible vector for transmission of FeLV. It all boils down to how much risk you're willing to take. The risk is very low, to be sure, but it's not zero. So this is the consideration that you must make. And there you see Dill, my little Feluke cat, lives in Utah, and he is the picture of health. He's thriving, very stable, wonderful cat, loves to play with his cat toys and chase mice around. He's highly progressive, and he's really the picture of health, so he's doing quite well. A couple of extras I just want to mention. I mentioned briefly that catinfo.org website. It's a wonderful place to get information about nutritional aspects of your cat. They have a wonderful chart that's there. It's on the right-hand side. If you scroll down a bit, it's a chart that lists most of the wet cat food varieties, and it has the amount of protein, fat, and carbs that are in the wet foods. We find that there's some very expensive cat foods that are very poor nutritionally, and the opposite, we find some relatively inexpensive cat foods that are really very good. So you want to check that out. And there's lots of articles too that will help you understand the nutritional needs of the cat. I also, you'll notice the Community Cats podcast, you're listening to one of their events today, this webinar. Stacy LeBaron and her great team do marvelous things when it comes to cats. It's a great source of information, and it's information that you can trust. They do podcast weekly. They have TNR workshops and certifications at least once a month. They have maybe 20 or 30 different programs throughout the year that are very inexpensive or free. So it's a great place. Bookmark it, whatever it takes. Go to their website, start checking them out. It's an excellent source of information. And there again, you see my kitty Dill. He is, of course, a Kansas City Chiefs fan. A couple of extras. There are links to these in the handouts. So take a look at those. Some focus on felines that meets once a month. and also the Maddie's call. So check those out if you download the slides or the handouts. My email address is there. Feel free to contact me by email, margaret.tompkins@comcast.net. Be happy to talk to you one-on-one about your cats or your program, whatever. And there you see a picture of Dill celebrating his 3rd birthday and thriving, as I said. There is more information in the handouts about adoption. Remember, adoption is the outcome that we want for FeLV cats. We want to eliminate the barriers to adoption. We want to get those cats into the hands of a loving home, allow mixed households. It's okay. You'll save one more cat. And we're all about educating the adopter. So that is the key to this. We want to educate the adopters so the adopter can make reasonable decisions about their FeLV cat and their cats in general. And with that, I will return it back to Stacy and look forward to the questions and things that you may have.
That was excellent. I think you expanded that a little bit from July. It looked like there were a few extra slides in there, something new.
Yes, there is a bit of new information there. I learn more every day, and I want to pass that information along to others as well. So I'm continually learning, and that's why your programs, Stacy, are just so excellent. You're at the forefront of the knowledge, not just on FeLV, but in all of your programs. So that's, you're the go-to person when it comes to cats, and I will say that forever.
Oh, thank you, Margaret. And I just want to say too, is that if folks have any information that they want to share, anything new, exciting, new programs, new ideas, new approaches, that is what we're all about here at the Community Cats Podcast, is sharing that information out to our community as fast as possible. So, anytime anybody wants to do something with us, collaborate, we're pretty much of an open door policy here. So feel free to reach out, and Kristen and I are usually pretty much game for pretty much anything. So, so that's great. All right, questions. We do have some questions here, so I am going to start them here. All right, first question is, this person had a kitty that tested SNAP positive on 9/15, planning on waiting 4 to 6 weeks before having the IDEXX test done for all of those additional details. After just wondering, is there a reason to wait, or should you go ahead and do that IDEXX test right away?
There's no reason to wait. It depends a little bit on how young the cat is, and I don't believe she mentioned the age of the cat. It takes a cat needs to be at least about 2 months old before you can test, but go ahead and get the test. It's reliable, it's accurate, so you can do that IDEXX test at any time that you can get a blood sample. Now, if the cat is so little that you can't get a blood sample, then of course you can't do the test, but it is okay to do the test right now. No need to wait.
Any advice for how we as a shelter can encourage our fosters to accept feline leukemia cats in their home while they wait for adoption? We know we need to educate them better. We're trying to figure out actually like how to break this down for them specifically.
Education is the key, and I've been preaching here about educating adopters. I would put fosters in that category as well. We need to educate ourselves. Our fosters, our admissions people, everybody needs a little education in FeLV and just how these viruses are transmitted, how it's okay to pet a cat with feline leukemia, wash your hands and go pet a different cat. I mean, these are kind of the basics, and it hasn't been that long ago that I actually saw a person in a moon suit. They were not dressed really correctly, but it was a moon suit, with the gown and everything, gloves. feeding an FIV positive cat. And it's like, we've come a long way, but we have more to do. So education is the key. Provide these webinars, papers to your fosters. Let them, you need to eliminate their concerns. And I'll be happy to talk to any foster. Some may not want to do it. They may fear that, one of their cats could get infected, and that's okay. You don't need to convince everybody, but I think you will. All of us are sort of coming around to this realization that it's okay to have cats. They're not going to, spread FeLV. It's not like Panluke. I mean, we just really need to get our diseases straight. Panluke is contagious, FeLV isn't. So we just really need to educate ourselves.
Gotcha. If queen to kitten is the primary transmission mode, should rescues and shelters make it a priority to snap test queens upon admission? My rescue wouldn't typically send a healthy, newly rescued queen to a vet for an immediate snap test, but maybe we should think about doing that.
I don't think it's necessary. It depends on what you're going to do with that queen. Are you going to do a spay abort? Some places do that, others do not. And I respect the decision either way. I'm not in the decision-making mode. I'm strictly education. So even if you test the queen, we have queens that test positive and all the kittens are negative. We have queens that test negative and all the kittens are positive. FeLV is a very interesting virus. So because you're testing the queen, you're only testing her. You're not testing the kittens, and it's going to be a couple of months before you can test those kittens anyway. So I wouldn't think it's necessary to test the queen. If you are going to keep that queen, let her deliver the kittens, let her nurse the kittens until they're weaned, and then if you want to do some testing, it's up to you. They fall into the sort of a normal testing protocol by then.
Is it possible for an ELISA, an IFA, and PCR all to be negative, but feline leukemia still be in the background?
Let me see. You're saying negative on IFA, negative on PCR, and negative on SNAP. Is it possible? I tell you, I would not discount it. It's not probable. If you're testing a cat on the SNAP test, especially if you send it off and get that IDEX, their ELISA test, that's being done by experts who do that every day of their life, and the qPCR. If the cat's negative on all of those, that's a negative cat. Just thank goodness that it is, and enjoy the result.
How does long-term grooming transmission occur if blood-to-blood contact is required?
We think, and this is, there's no scientific evidence yet, but some theories that have been expressed by very knowledgeable people that I kind of trust and seem to have a handle on these things. It could involve mucus transfers. There is a virus that's in the nasal cavity as well, the nasal mucus, not nearly as much as what's in their mouth, in the saliva. But it can be in tears perhaps, that the cat is, having. So there are, that's theories. It hasn't been proven, it hasn't been shown, but you know how cats groom each other. They're very aggressive groomers. Some of them are. And so I don't know if they're licking eyeballs or what, but maybe tongue to tongue, I don't know. But those are just some theories that have been expressed by knowledgeable people, but we honestly don't know. We just know that transfer is possible, by long-term mutual grooming. It's rare. It definitely is very rare, but it can happen.
What is the average lifespan of a feline leukemia house cat?
It depends. If it's a progressive cat, the average is about 2.5 years from diagnosis. If it's a regressive cat, it's an open book. I hear reports. I just heard one yesterday, 21-year-old cat died. And I didn't know whether to offer my sympathy or my congratulations. And this was proven cat that was positive for FeLV. It was regressively infected, but a 21-year-old cat. So, and I sort of wanted to offer both congratulations and sympathy, expressing condolences over the loss of their cat. So, and that's, every cat is different. I have seen progressive cats, well, Bo and Barney, I had showed pictures of them. Bo was almost 8 years old when he died, and Barney was like 5.5. So they had good long lives for FeLV cats, and they had it as kittens, so they got it from their mom. So they were always infected with FeLV.
I run a special needs only cat rescue. Many of them are paralyzed or have CH. Are they considered high risk?
I would say yes. I have no information from Merck, which came up with that list, but I would put them in that high risk category just because they may have some neurological things going on with them that might affect the immune system. I'm not an expert in that area, so I'm kind of winging it here. But if I had to put them in that group, I would.
I got an email too. From a woman who said that her organization or the shelter she volunteers with still euthanizes cats for feline leukemia. And just within the last week, I believe she said 3 cats were euthanized. She's been trying for 2 years to try and share information with them and to change perception, to no avail. Any ideas of what she should do now?
There is the people at Austin Pets Alive are putting together a list of shelters and rescues that accept FeLV cats. Perhaps that person can reach out to Austin Pets Alive and the person in charge of adoptions there and get a, it's a work in progress, is why it's not published yet, but get a list of the rescues and shelters that will take and find which ones are in their area that they can send the cats to. I mean, I will take those cats. I will take those cats. I will network those cats. I will get them to a safe place. And we're not asking that, there's just no reason. It's in their best interest to save that cat. It's like everyone looks at your out alive rate. You know, the benchmark by Best Friends is 90%. If you reach 90% out alive, you get this no-kill status. So for FeLV, save a life, raise your numbers. No reason to euthanize 3 cats. Call up somebody that will take them. It's that simple. I know you've been rescuing FeLV cats for, dare I say, more than 20 years. I don't want to age you there, Stacy, but you were doing it long before it was popular to do it. And it was hard then. No one wanted these cats, but now we find that people do want them. They make extraordinary pets. Feel free to give my email address to this lady. I will be happy to try to work with her. Be happy to talk to her people, anything to possibly just, it's all about education. All they have to do is look at the facts. You would think that they are looking, if it's a shelter, there's, I forgot the exact name for it, but there's the shelter, what is it? The shelter groups that, they have their own boards of recommendations, like the American Association of Feline Practitioners. That's a big one. They ought to be following the guidance. That's what they do, is give guidance to shelters primarily. So you have a lot of guidance that comes out as part of shelter medicine. And that's very common. I would want to be asking why they're not following that guidance.
Right. And there's UC Davis and American Association of Shelter Veterinarians, and there are
Yes.
those resources out there. I'm also going to suggest something that we all can do, which is something that I've been wrestling with, which is our solutions for cats don't all fall within the shelter world. They fall within the community space. So if you are on Nextdoor or Neighbors or various other chat groups that are out there, or local cable TV, just all those local resources that are basically free for us to share information. When this webinar hits YouTube, you can post it to your local, Nextdoor group and just say, hey, if you're interested in learning about feline leukemia, maybe you haven't run into this now, but if you're a cat lover, probably in your lifetime, you're going to run into somebody asking you a question about feline leukemia. Here's general education that provides value to, a community. Everybody loves cats, right? We're all cat lovers. There's really, so it's just good to be able to provide access to this general education so that we can empower ourselves to provide solutions rather than depending on, our veterinarian, our shelter. We're offloading the responsibility. Let's internally learn for ourselves so that we can self-advocate for these cats.
Excellent advice. Excellent.
All right, let me see here. Any other folks, any other questions? If I missed a question from earlier, please replay it, put it in here again. But I think we've captured most of the questions. Question, what is the approximate cost for the IDEXX 26355 test?
I've seen it range from 85 to 120, and that's a test that you can shop around for. It doesn't have to be done by your, current vet. If that vet wants to charge you $500 for it, I would certainly shop around. It's a simple blood draw, and then they will send that test off to the IDEXX lab, and you get the results in a couple of days. So you can shop around for that one. It's about the same as what IFA was, so there's really, not too much of a change from that.
Good question that just popped up. Some of our larger retailers that have adoption facilities within the retail space do not allow for FIV or feline leukemia cats to be put up for adoption within those very marketable spaces. What are your thoughts on showing cats there that have feline leukemia, and then also that policy too?
The policy needs to change. There's absolutely no reason why you can't showcase those cats. I have given some talks about where you place cats in the shelter, and I always say you put your FeLV cats in the first kennel that you see, and then you have your three-legged blind cat in the next one, and so on. And those cute little kittens that you've got, you put them in the back room. And it's like those cute little kittens will get adopted, but the adopters need to walk through and see all the other wonderful available cats that are up for adoption. So you want to showcase your FeLV cats. And I believe, is it Treehouse that has a cafe, wonderful program that they have where they really, they have very cute marketing, positively, spelled that way, adoptable cats, and they really do some outstanding work in their adoption. So when it comes to adoption, a lot of it is about marketing, and you don't want to treat these cats like they are bad or defective. I mean, look at Minx there, the blind FeLV cat, one of the best cats on the planet. Ever. And the policies like that, it's people that don't understand the virus. And let's face it, we've learned a lot in these last few years. So policy is always the last thing that gets changed. We still have incredibly bad state laws that don't allow transportation of FeLV cats, and that discourages things. We need to remove all those restrictions about FeLV cats, and they're not all at the shelter. Some are in our state laws and that sort of thing. So we have a lot more work to do.
Someone writes in here, they live in Cape Town, South Africa. The standard protocol is to euthanize feline leukemia cats. How do you change a country's thinking?
That's a tough one. I think you start in your neighborhood. You start with your local shelter. If you're like me, when my 2 cats I wanted to save got euthanized at my local shelter, where I was a very good volunteer, I got angry and I went out on Facebook. And I think I had 10 friends at the time and was related to 9 of them. So I just started, I Googled FeLV and came up with some of these groups that already existed. So I joined and I found a network of people that were as passionate about saving these cats as I was. And I think that's where you start. Start on social media if you want. If you've got a Facebook account or Instagram, just start somewhere. I love your phrase, your theme for 24. If you see it, do something about it. You know, that's what you have to do. You just start, and you can start at the computer in your living room. You know, start there. And then just start learning about it, start talking about it, start sending emails to people, local councilmen, whatever it is. And you will find others that will join you until you can create sort of a movement. And that's how it all starts. It's all local.
Yeah, I think that is it's one neighborhood at a time. However, also looking at the bigger picture, talking about the retailers, then we also are looking at your local food and agriculture, all the retailers regulated like pet shops, and pet shops have different types of regulations that they have to abide by. So there's some multi-factor layers, and that's the slow road. Then there's the faster road, which is convincing your local community. So we have to kind of multitask the short term with the long term, because the long term can have a larger scale benefit at the end of the day. All right, let me see. Questions are still coming in, Margaret. You were right.
Let's just hope we have answers for them.
Okay, I am fostering a feline leukemia kitten. I do not have other cats in the house. Can I let it free to roam the full house? Do I need to change shoes from the room it stays in? My children have cats and would like to visit the kitten. Can they do it safely and not have to change clothes to go home?
Absolutely, all of the above. Just spoil that kitten for all it's worth. If the virus is going to die outside of the cat. So if the cat sneezes and there's some virus in the sneeze, it gets on the carpet, it's going to dry and be gone. So you don't have to worry about shampooing your carpets or, removing your shoes. It's good sanitation to wash your hand after, I think, petting a cat or a dog or any animal, but it's certainly okay. The kids can go home and pet their own cats, no problem whatsoever.
Excellent. Great news here. Someone is reporting in from a PetSmart in Kansas is now letting them bring in FIV positive cats to their Saturday adoption events. And they're hoping that their feline leukemia positive policies, they're based on PetSmart, is changing their feline leukemia positives coming to the store too, I believe she's saying here also. So that's fantastic.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's good news. That's good news.
Very good news. Very good news. There was one other, just in Brazil, if anyone wants to know this, there's an IDEX SNAP test that costs $30. Sharing that information. And someone here is also saying, just so you know, when Margaret says she'll return an email, she will return an email. There's somebody you've worked with out there is singing your praises.
Well,
So,
thank you very much. Sometimes it takes me a while to get to things, but I do try to help people with their cats. So,
all right. I think that I believe I have most of the questions, yep, covered. There is a transcript, so if you do need there will be a transcript once it's produced at the end of the session. If you would like a copy of that transcript, you can just send me an email. If you would like a copy of the handouts, send me an email if you can't download them from the GoToWebinar control panel. If you need anything from me, just reach out. I believe Margaret shared her email address on the slides, so that's in the handout. That's easy for you to reach out to her directly. Last question that I have for you. I know you talked about TNR. I know you talked about how passionate you are about TNR. Do you think that TNR and offering affordable, accessible spay neuter is really the best thing we can do to reduce feline leukemia in our cat population?
absolutely. Absolutely. Just spaying and neutering cats is going to stop the spread of FeLV, and that's with every exception except long-term mutual grooming. So, get those cats spayed and neutered. It's transformative. That is the biggest bang we get for our buck. And I mean, it reduces the cat population as well, which is generally a good thing.
Right.
But, stopping the spread of FeLV, that's better than the vaccine. Just keep it from spreading. I mean, spay and neuter the cats. Absolutely.
Super. With that being said, I'm going to do a little show and tell. So I have on my trap cats, fix cats, return cats, love cats, my community cats podcast swag. If you haven't checked out the swag, we do have a feline leukemia positive oriented t-shirt too. And we have lots of we have Stay Feral. If you don't know the Stay Feral logo that Kristen put together, it's absolutely fabulous. Feel free to check out our merchandise store. It's almost time to go shopping for the holidays at the communitycatspodcast.com. And also just wanted to send along a reminder, folks, I'm going to be here again tomorrow at noon with the United Spay Alliance doing a panel regarding neuter before adoption. So that's tomorrow, September 27th. I'm going to be here at noon Eastern time. It's going to be a short session, just about 30, 45 minutes. And we'll be talking about some of the important components about why it's so important to make sure we neuter before adoption. And if we are missing on our spay neuter capacity in our communities, we need to really prioritize problem solving those issues rather than just saying, hey, it's okay, let's issue a voucher and hope and pray that folks will utilize that voucher and get their cat spayed or neutered. So I will be here tomorrow. Kristen will be here tomorrow with the team at the United Spay Alliance for a neuter before adoption panel. It's going to be with Dr. Jeff Young, the Rocky Mountain vet. Will be there along with Dr. Phil Bushby, who is one of the founders of Feline Fix by 5, and he's going to talk about his philosophy around that, as well as being a high volume, high quality spay neuter veterinarian. So we're going to have a lot of fun tomorrow. And yeah, it's just so much going on. It's great. Kristen and I will be back at it on October 7th with another TNR certification workshop. And we have our United Spay Alliance conference in the middle of October. So busy times in October. So feel free to join us, ask me questions. Our Community Cats Pass for 2024, the link is up. So if you want to just sign up for one thing for 2024 and you'll get access to everything. We add something new and you still get invited, you get the recordings. So I think we have over 29 sessions already scheduled for 2024, and I'm sure probably we'll end up close to 35, knowing Kristen and myself. We'll be adding things in. I've already recorded 8 podcasts for 2024, so we are just ahead of the game. We're rocking and rolling. We're just turning our passion for cats into action. That's what we're doing, everybody. So I want to thank you, Margaret. Any last thoughts before we close out?
Just spay and neuter those cats, and make sure that you do everything possible to, save those FeLV cats. Adoption is what they need, and adoption is what we need to promote.